Welcome to Laurel Smith of Chicago, Illinois, nonprofit home video and artworks creations. Now, in this particular video, we will be looking at the present Middle East crisis as it relates to the Israeli and Palestinian land debate. Now, there's an astronomical event occurring in our solar system that decodes the present Middle East land debate in the Northeast African land surface area. We see this V-shaped piece of land and a thin strip of water referred to as the Euphrates River. It separates, according to the geography books, Northwest Africa from East Africa. However, if that Euphrates River dry up, we will see that the V-shaped piece of land in which history books and the national news media is referring to as the Middle East. Now remember, this is located in Northeast Africa. That V-shaped piece of land is a part of the African continent. So when we look at the Old Testament, U.F.O landing, or we're within the world like U.F.O landing, we're looking at a U.F.O landing the size of several cities in the Northeast African continent area. Now remember, that's the V-shaped piece of land in which the news media is referring to as the Middle East. So as we decode the present Middle East crisis, with modern astronomical events occurring within our solar system, we see the Exodus route out of ancient Egypt is a line 29 degrees north from the top of the Sphinx head. It goes across the desert and the Euphrates River into Northeast Africa. Again, that's what the V-shaped piece of land is in which the news media is calling the Middle East. Now remember, in that V-shaped piece of land, Iraq, Syria, Babylon, and Mount Sinai and Jerusalem is located. So if we reterm or redefine the Middle East spin by the news media, we would see a war occurring in Northeast Africa. Now that's that V-shaped land where Babylon, Jerusalem, Syria, Afghanistan is located, and Palestine. So when we redefine what's going on in the Middle East to astronomical events, we must look at the Chinese satellite image Pyramid 7 form of Comet ISON. As it orbits around our sun, a huge comet shaped like a pyramid that's surrounded by a ball of the rotating holy hydrogen creation. Now, the Chinese placed this image of a pyramid orbiting around our sun on the internet. And when you look at the video, you're going to immediately see an African-Egyptian pyramid connected to a black Ethiopian lion sphinx of ancient Judaism. Now remember, we're talking about the Mid-East wars between the English pilgrims that started America and the United States. So we're talking about the kings and queens of England taking over Africa. Okay, when we look at the Middle East wars, we see it occurring in Northeast Africa. Now again, that's the Middle East, or the V-shaped piece of land. So when we look at the kings and queens of England writing the 400-year-old mistranslated King James Bible and denying the African sphinx Ethiopia, origin of Judaism. Now we look at the decoding factor in the present Middle East crisis between Israel and Palestine. So as we look at 75% of the African resources, of the African continent resources, is controlled by the IMF, International Monetary Fund, through the banks of England and Europe, okay, and Great Britain. So that means that the ones that wrote the English Bible started America as English pilgrims. Now when we look at the African pyramid on the back of the American dollar bill, missing an African sphinx, this decodes the Middle East war, because when we go back to the Middle East, we see an African-Egyptian pyramid and the black African lion sphinx couched down in front of the Isaiah 1919 GIZA pyramids. Now, when we talk about the Middle East wars, it's occurring in Northeast Africa, in the Holy Land area of this V-shaped piece of land, which is again referring to the Northeast geographic land area of Africa, or that Sphinx 1. So when we look at this with Google satellite imagery, we draw a white line, well, we draw 12 lines from South Africa up to North Africa, and look at it with Google satellite imagery. We see Africans living in each white line. Hence comes the term the 12 African continent tribe. So the 12th line is where the African Ethiopian lion Sphinx in North Africa exists. So when we dispel the 400-year-old mistranslated King James Bible that's read in every neighborhood church that speaks of the book of Psalms, 105th chapter and 23rd verse, 12 sons of Jacob, 12 black boys following the old man with a cane called Jacob into Egypt and starting Judaism. This is a bald-faced lie, but this is what seemed to be the backbone of the Middle East wars. Okay, now you say, why is this a lie in the book of Psalms 105th chapter 23rd verse? Well, you cannot have 12 black boys following the old man with the cane into ancient Egypt and starting Judaism. Why? Because Egypt already exists. Hence, we destroy Psalms 105th chapter 23rd verse, Israeli incursions into Northeast Africa. Okay, remember, that's where Jerusalem is in Northeast Africa. But geography books and the national news media refer to it as the Middle East, that V-shaped piece of land. So when we dispel someone entering into ancient Egypt in the 400-year-old mistranslated King James Bible, we're talking about the English pilgrims separating from the Queen and Kings of England, and in boats they traveled to America and started as pilgrims and started the United States. So today they celebrate their freedom from England and Europe with the Thanksgiving holiday every year. You carve turkey. So when we go back to the Middle East wars, we say, wait a minute. Okay, wait. This war is occurring in the biblical African lion Sphinx era, right? That's Jerusalem. Okay. Now, once you identify GIZA, G-I-Z-A, okay, where the African Sphinx lion of the tribe of Judah is couched down in front of the Isaiah 1919 GIZA pyramids, facing east toward the biblical light that created the world. That's Psalms 84. That's 1 John 1:1, 15 billion sun zone that existed in the black outer regions of space before it created the 5 billion world. And it returns in the cube crystal city structure of New Jerusalem, crystallographic, projected 101 atomic planes. So when we look at this African Sphinx pyramids orbiting around the sun, the Chinese satellite images provided those images and placed them on the internet. So we see a comet ice in pyramid 7 form. It's a comet shaped like a pyramid surrounded by a ball of holy light creation. This comet is rotating. This pyramid is rotating around in a ball of light around our sun, and it has two huge circular motherships, UFO 1 and 2. Now UFO 1 is the UFO that's the size of several cities. For instance, picture the city of Chicago. You can go to Chicago Heights, you can go downtown. But picture the whole city of Chicago rising up and hovering 50 miles above your head. As you look up at it, you round off the edges of the city of Chicago. You're looking at a huge city-sized mothership. So don't get it twisted. When I talk about the Middle East wars, I'm talking about the mothership in the Old Testament that landed in Northeast Africa, that V-shaped piece of land in which the news media called the Middle East. So when we look at the origin behind Judaism, we see the Isaiah 1919 GIZA pyramid and the book of Genesis 49 chapter 8 verse 4 son of Jacob. Now remember, this is putting a spin on the usage of 12 boys entering into Egypt following the old man called Jacob, and starting Judaism. But now, if we look at this, Egypt already existed. So Psalms 105th chapter 23rd verse narrative is thrown right out the window. So if we go to Egypt and back in time, we're going to see a black African lion Sphinx ruling all the African 12 continent tribes. So this is important because if you look at a map, the African continent map, right, on my video, you're going to see if you draw 12 lines from south to north, white lines, you see Africans living in each white line. So this is the 12 African continent tribes that was enacted in the English Bible by the kings and queens of England, who wrote the Bible to the 1611 King of England. And so the United States was started by a lie, okay, and the people that printed the dollar bills, in which took the African things off the dollar bill, but kept the African pyramids in Egypt on the back of the dollar bill. So when you talk about the Middle East war, an astronomical event occurring in our solar system decodes why Greek and Romans through Europe, okay, and modern Europe is England, okay, you get it? Modern Greece and Rome is England and Great Britain. So if we say that the Bible is talking about the children of Judah and Jerusalem in the book of Joel 3:6 was sold to the Greeks, that they might be removed far from their land. Okay, and so when we talk about this there's English starting America, the Pilgrims, and creating a holiday to celebrate their independence from England. We're talking about the King of England in 1609, 400 years ago, writing the 400-year-old mistranslated King James Bible. It's a slave-based religion during the conquest of Africa. So when we talk about the Middle East wars, we have involved the kings and queens of England hiding in Northeast Africa, V-shaped piece of land, where Mount Sinai is, Jerusalem, Syria, and Afghanistan. So when we talk about white people in Northeast Africa, in a V-shaped piece of land, okay, that the news media refer to as the Middle East. Okay, that means Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Jerusalem, and Mount Sinai is all in the northeast continent mountain range of Africa. So that means when we see something connected to ancient Egypt or ancient Africa orbiting around our sun, we see a comet, ice, and pyramid 7 form, and two huge circular motherships the size of several cities, U.F.O 1 and 2. So when we talk about the Seal of King Solomon, it's the African Ethiopian cross-shaped building structure in Lalibela ceiling post image of a stone 6-point star. It's not a white English occupiers of Jerusalem as Israelites. So once you identify the Israelites as being occupiers in Northeast Africa, that's what that V-shaped piece of land is, in which the news media and geography books is calling the Middle East. So once you put a spin on the English terminology of words, we will see that all these wars that's been occurring over the past 100 years in the Middle East has been between English people in the United States, okay, seeking to recontrol or retake the Northeast African continent, V-shaped piece of land area. Now that's referred to as Mount Sinai. Now why is this so important? Because that's where an orbiting pyramid 7 form of comet ISON orbiting around our sun is connected to ancient Egypt, Black African lion Sphinx, and the African Egyptian pyramids. So when we see a pyramid in ancient Egypt and the African Sphinx that was denounced in English Bible and theological racism by the kings and queens of England, that also took over the African continent. So when we go back into the African continent, we will see that 75% of the African resources, the diamond and oil mines, is controlled by the kings and queens of England. So this is how we decode the present Middle East wars that is talked about on your national news television stations. So it's a war in Northeast Africa. That's the new span. But when they talk about the war in the Middle East, then it's a brainwashing span, because you have no ties as Afro-American to the Middle East. Once they put that terminology that the V-shaped piece of land, well, Mount Sinai, Jerusalem, and Syria, and Palestine is located, it has nothing to do with Africa. Well, that's a bald-faced lie, because this is the origin behind the Middle East war, the Northeast V-shaped piece of land in the African continent geographic area. So now, once we look at this for what it is, we see astronomical events occurring in our solar system that changes the balance of power in the Middle East. And what is that? Well, remember, in the Old Testament, a U.F.O landed upon Mount Sinai. Okay, now, this is the modern astronomical event in which we'll redefine the power holders in the Middle East. Why? Because when we use Chinese satellite imagery, we see a huge comet shaped like a pyramid surrounded by a ball of light orbiting around the sun. And this pyramid is connected to ancient Egypt. So remember, the pyramid is on the back of the American dollar bill. You say, okay, but the African Sphinx is not. This is what I mean by a game changer. A national astronomical event occurring in our solar system changes the power holders in the Middle East. So this might be the replacing of the Illuminati on Earth, which turns out to be Greek and Roman Masons, okay, operating through the IMF, controlling the International Monetary Fund of all cities around the world. So you say the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill is orbiting around the sun, and it's connected to a Black African Ethiopian lion Sphinx and the Seal of King Solomon. That means a 6-point star that the white people try to take over as Israelites in Jerusalem. Remember, Jerusalem is in that V-shaped piece of land is referred to as the Asian land surface. But if we correct that, it's connected to Northeast Africa.